Hey everybody, it's David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today I want to talk to you about stencils. Stencils and how to use them in your watercolors. I've been using it now for a couple of years, and sometimes it makes it look really bad painting look really good. And it's almost like you know how to do negative painting without actually knowing how to do negative painting. So let me go right down to show you what this is and what it looks like. So if you look at these pictures, these paintings I had done over here, they are regular watercolors. All of them are regular watercolors, and they have stencils in them. Is this one up here? You can see in the background a curtain has like a pattern in it, and I use a stencil for that. And then down here, these lines that are part of the scenery, kind of like it stems back there. That's a stencil. And same thing here. This is a stencil that's a kind of a design element, and this down here is a stencil to make it look like part of the object. And so that's basically one of the things I have to talk to you about, and is that when you're using stencils and putting them into your work, you don't want to use more than one stencil if it's for the design or for part of the picture stencil. I kind of divide them into two. One of the stencils would be something that you would actually see in the photo, and there's another stencil that would just be a kind of a design element in your work. And that would be sort of like this. This right here, these little triangles would not actually be here in this picture. So that's more of a design element, as this is part of the picture. So these stencils make it look like stems, and these are just a design element. And so there's different ways, and this one's kind of both, because it is a design element, but it is also the curtain. The drapery in this little scene here. So there's a design element in this, but it's also part of the scene. So and the thing is, you do not want to have two design elements and different design elements in a scene, and you don't want to have two even these kind of things that are in the scene. You don't want to mix those up. You can mix a design element and a in the scene kind of stencil. That's okay, but no two different kind of design elements. I've done it a couple times, and it has ruined your painting. And so let me go to the tabletop here, and I'll just show you how to use it and how to work these. So basically, when I'm going to be doing this, I'll be doing a stencil on the back of this, and just because right now it's a kind of a boring background, just simple. And so I want to turn it and make it something a little bit. Maybe I want it to be like a curtain, like the other one. And I can actually put a tablecloth on here and actually put a pattern on that too. So just to make things a little bit interesting. I mean, it probably looks fine like that, but you're going to see how I'm going to take out pigment and I'm going to put in pigment. So basically that's what you got to think about. And now there's all kinds of stencils. Like I said, I get my stencils from stencilgirlproducts.com, also on Amazon. There's a couple places, just type in, art stencils, and you can get those. And I will put them in the description of this video. I'll put some links in there so you can find some of these that I'm talking to you about. So here's like the first stencil I ever started with, and it was given to me by Trish McKinney in a expo. And so you have to remember that you can either put in a dark or take out a light. So if I were to take out this light again, so it'd be a lot of area, and then this dark would be the lines that you see. If I do it here, I would be making this dark and do the same way. I would spray it with a dark, and again, this would be the lines that you would see light. So either way, there you can do that. And then there's stencils like this that are actually objects, like little plants. This now would be like something you use for maybe weeds and stuff like that. Then there's stencils that are design elements, and if you look, this is a writing. So if I wash this off, I would see writing. It's very legible. You can't read it, and so we would not be able to read that, which is, you don't want anybody to read it. It's just a kind of a design element in there too. And so we've got something like this where there's circles, and little lines, and it's kind of hard to see because it's clear. And again, here's another one that is, if you look, it's just like a doily type of thing, and this is what I used for that curtain that you saw in the first thing. All right, so these are the stencils, and like I said, you can use anything that has holes in it. I've had students, like I say, use onion bags, and they come in with all kinds of interesting things that they found that they can rub out or put something in. If you're putting in, you have to just wash it with watercolor, because we are doing this with watercolor, and you can't use a lot of water. So there's the only problem with that. So let me just show you first off on here how to put it in and out before I do it onto the regular. So here I'll use this one for now. And so what I do to take it out, and like this is a wash I did of dark, and to take it out, and that means these images on here would be light. And so I take a magic eraser, Mr. Clean magic eraser, or any kind of like those erasers that are not Mr. Clean. They don't need any kind of substance in them. You know, they're just, even a regular sponge works. But you have to take as much water out as you can, and it just has to be slightly damp. Because if you have any water that goes in there, I actually put it on my towel and just get it so it's damp. And then what I do is I just hold down the stencil and then rub. And basically what I'm doing is I'm rubbing straight down. I'm trying not to push down too hard because that will release some of the water. And I don't want to release water because that will go behind the stencil and ruin the whole effect. So I'm just rubbing across it. And the more you rub, and also what you can do is while you're rubbing it, it's getting into the sponge, right? And then you can take it down into the area where it's light, and then you can go reverse it. And so it'd be kind of like a reversal. And I'll show you that in a second. And as soon as I always hold it down. You can also tape it down if you feel like you need to, if you can't hold it. But usually most of the people can hold it and just sit there. And I kind of dab and push at the same time, dab and push. But don't squeeze really hard down, because if you squeeze down hard, it releases water out of your sponge. And so, and then also, this makes it dark, you know, because it's in my sponge. But I will show you how to make it the other way too. And so now if I pick this up, I always hold it too before you pick it up to make sure you got things. And so see how I kind of I've got the look of this stencil right there. And it just gives it kind of an interesting look. And I probably didn't get it really fine because I didn't go in there really finely. But look how it goes down here, and then you get the reverse of it. Now also to put it in, there's a few separate ways of putting it into let me turn around here and I'll make it upside down. So let's say I want to make this now and I want to get this dark. So there's a couple of ways. One way is to take like a bristle brush. They even make stencil brushes that you tap down, but you got to watch out for this because, again, not much water. So what I don't like to dip into the water here. So what I'm going to do is dip in, because I have to make the pigment a little wet, and then I put it in my palette here. And I'm going to just take black, you know, just to show you. And then I'm going to take it and put it on my cloth here, because I'm trying to get rid of the water and keep the pigment, but get rid of the water. And then I just tap downwards, straight downwards. And this is one way of getting the stencil to not have water on it. And you're just trying to take it straight down. And this is what you do with the stencils like you have on the wall, like, you know, that you've seen, you know, that people put wording and stuff on their walls at home and stuff. And they have this kind of thing where they take a bristle brush, and there's even a stencil brush that it's like round and flat like this, but you can just use like a really cheap bristle brush and just go straight down. I wouldn't use my watercolor brushes, and don't go across like this, because that instantly will take water and put it right underneath the stencil. So that's one way. And then there's the way of airbrush. And if you have an atomizer, one of those little things that you put in there, you can do that. I use an airbrush, and I have an airbrush here. I have those other ones that are not hooked onto the compressor, that's part of the compressor, but they tend to seem to be really cheap, and I always kind of break them and stuff. So I'm kind of recommending these again, because it's just those other ones, until they make a really good one that lasts a while. You know, it's like $50, and then you use it for maybe like 10 times, and then something happens to it. So I've been really unlucky with the ones that I bought so far. So you can use ink acrylic. You can use watercolor. Just take your brush, and I kind of go like this, and I mix up a batch, and I use water, and I just rub it against this cup. And again, you can also use ink acrylic. Holbein has ink acrylic that you can just put right in there. But it is a watercolor, and when you're using the inks, you got to really wipe out your airbrush really good so that none of it dries. Watercolor, if it dries in there a little bit, that's almost not bad, you know, because it is watercolor. And I'm just, like I said, I'm putting water in this black in here, and I'm just rubbing it against there. See, I'm just kind of rubbing, and it's filling up little by little, because I'm just kind of squeezing it in there. You can actually mix up a batch of watercolor too, and actually they sell, I think. Well, you can see that's what happened when I just used a stencil or the bristle brush. And now when I use the airbrush, I'm just going to turn it on here. I don't think it's going to be too loud. And then on this airbrush, I have to push down and pull back the lever. So I just push down and see how it just comes out, and then I just go right over it. And you kind of go, it shouldn't be straight down, you should put it at an angle so that you can just... And now it's spraying out more water than pigment, and so I've got to watch that too. And because it is a little bit watery, but that's okay. I just need to show you. You know, read how to use your airbrush, practice with your airbrush before you do that. I'm just going to rinse that out real quick. Spray it again to clean it out. There's an aside here. And so, if you look what I did, I'm going to always pick it up first and then see if I did it all right, because I don't want to move it if I have to lay it down again. So there we go. And so there we have, oh boy, there we have it. So there we have it, and I'm just going to wipe this off real quickly. So there you have watercolor and with an airbrush, and so that is applying it into the, making it dark where this was taking out. All right, and so let me do this one more time on an actual painting. So here's an actual painting, and one thing you gotta do is kind of look at it, you know, kind of put it on there and think, will that look good? You know, it's kind of like a hit or miss sometimes. And I have ruined a few paintings, but what you can do is if you don't like it, you just re-wet it and just do a nice wash again, because you are going to be taking it out again, another stencil. So the wash doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to be taking out some of the paint again, because it's a dark area. And down here I would apply with the airbrush, so I can get a really light wash down there. All right, so I chose for this one, I'm going to make it, I decided I'm using this one and making it like the same thing like the curtain. Like there's a curtain back there, and so I'm just going to take and rub out. And so again, use your magic eraser. Get those things out of the way. I'll dip it in there, and I'm going to rinse it out as best I can. And this painting is kind of old. This is an old painting that I just had laying around, and so even if it's laying around for a long time, you can still rub out the watercolor, because it is a watercolor and water damages it. And so I can just go in here and just rub across it. So just rubbing across. And you can also do it lightly and then use the dirty part and put it in again down here where it's going to be a little bit, it's a little bit light here, and you want to put it in dark. So you use this where you're rubbed out and it gets dirty into the sponge, and then you use that back into the area by tapping down and putting it into this area where you want it to be dark. So lightly go across it. Now watch out, you don't want to go into the bottle. I'm basically tapping and pushing at the same time. Now some of these stencils have really fine products, so you have to kind of, you know, go into direction so it doesn't flip up. The little, you know, the way they cut them, they maybe where it kind of flips up and stuff. And just hold it down, don't move it. You know, and like I said, if you want to tape it down, that's a good thing. I have this hand on it, and so I'm not moving that hand. I'm going to try to keep it on there as long as possible. And I'm going all the way down here. And then here I'm just going to put in dark, because it's kind of wet and I've got dirty. And actually I can also dip into this dirty part of my palette here, and I can put that in there by just tapping down. So I can put in by tapping down the sponge, and then take out by just rubbing. And it's probably boring to watch me doing this, but it's pretty quickly, and it doesn't take long to learn how to do this. And take a bunch of old paintings first, like that maybe didn't work out. I mean, a lot of you students have paintings that you don't like. Work on them. Work on those first. Don't do it on a sheet of paper or on a painting that you really like. You know, work on it and work it out and figure out how much water to use into your magic eraser, the sponge. I'm sure you can use a regular sponge too, a fine sponge, but again, it can't be too wet. So what I like to do is I like to look once in a while, and I'll keep my hand down there so it doesn't move. And so here I just have a little bit of and so I got to get a lot more in there because it's not much in there. So let me get a little bit more. I noticed that I missed a lot of it. And parts that are light, they won't show because it's sort of like light on light, and so that's not going to work. So I have to rub a little bit harder, get some more of this paint out. And sometimes it even wrecks the paper, but it doesn't matter because you want it to be white, And so it's fine. It's fine the way it is, and just rub it, rub it, rub it. Ooh, right over the water, right over the bottle. We don't need the bottle being. Oh, that's right in the glass too. Oh. So there you go. So that's fine. And I get a little bit of the sponge off of there. So that just kind of makes it look like the background has a texture to it, you know. And if you didn't like it, maybe move it a little bit, and then, because it is a curtain, so it seems kind of flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this stencil and maybe make a little bit more in there, because this seems a little bit kind of like just not enough. I want to make it, I probably should have used this one in the beginning, because it seems like it doesn't look like a curtain. It doesn't have the waves, and so I should have put that in first, like the painting I had there before that I showed you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and go over this a little bit, and then see if I can get more pattern in there too. So basically it's going to end up being this pattern with that underneath it, but you know, that's fine too. I just felt like it was just not enough. It just didn't look nice, you know. It was just like little random little dots around, and it didn't look like a curtain. So I'm gonna try that instead. So there, a little bit more, has a little bit more of a nice look. Rub this side out a little bit more, and then I'll switch it over to this side. And the stuff that got into the bottle, don't worry about that. You can always work that out later. You can rub it out or put some opaque over it. Just really lightly rubbing across here. All right, and so now we have a little bit more. And so that was a little bit better. Now, like I said, the parts that went in here, I can rub those out with my brush. And I can even put opaques in there and stuff. And now it got outside the image, but that's okay. And so down here, like I said, I could just rub this. I'll rub this out a little bit here. Or like I said, put opaque and put opaque back on there. And maybe it doesn't need, maybe it can look like it's going through the glass. You know, you can do that. Actually, this is too white an edge anyway, so. So suddenly we had this like random background. It's kind of like interesting. It's kind of, it gives it a little bit of a pattern on the background, so that's cool. I would work in the bottle a bit more to push the bottle forward, and maybe even get some darks in here to push this glass and the pears forward a little bit. Now, but it's just I demonstrate what you can do. Now, for the stencil here, like I said, this is more of a design element, so it doesn't look like it would be there. It's not like a curtain. It's just kind of a design element in this case. And so down here, I'm gonna have to make it look like something that's like the shadows going across. So I may take and just do like there's something over here with shadow wise, and it's gonna like stream across. And so I'm gonna take my, I think this will look okay. Let me try. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of light purple, lavender. I'm gonna take a little bit of lavender, and I'm gonna take some lavender here, put it into the airbrush. And I'm just going to hit it lightly just so to show you again what you can do with the airbrush. Okay. Get some nice amount of pigment in there this time. I'll take this, turn this on real quickly. And I'm going to make it look like there's just this little shadows going across it here. Actually right there too, like it's, okay. Turn it on. And too thick. And then, oh, here it comes. Here it comes, those bugs. And again, learn how to use your airbrush, and it seems like this is too light. I should have made it a little bit darker. I'll keep that there. Set it off for a second. Put a little more dark in there. Put a little dark purple in there too. Besides the, mix it up a little bit. Some dark purple. Mix that up. Let's see if we can get that a little bit darker. Again, I'm not quite certain if this will be a good stencil for this, but sometimes you never know. Gotta try it. And so here we have, see, it's like a little pattern on a tablecloth. You can also go in here and I can, you know, like you're painting, you can go to your brush actually in there too. Turn it off. I can actually take, and I can actually draw in there too, you know, like little patterns. Then I can go opposite that and make little lines. And so it looks like part of the design on the tablecloth. All things you can do, you know, it's just another little element that you can use. It's another little toy in a way to use in your watercolors just to make it a little bit different. And now I'm not quite sure if these two are two design elements, and maybe I still think that's kind of not a great thing. And I could actually go over this too. Like if I wanted to, let's say, if I felt that was just popping out too much, I could put a wash across it. I could just put a wash, and let's do that just so to show you. If you're not stuck with it the way it is, I mean, if you want to feel like all of a sudden that's like popping too much, what I'll do is I'll wet it. And then I will tone down parts of it by just putting a wash over it, because it's going to stay there. It's going to stay there nicely, and then and you're going to see some of it, and some of it maybe you can just put a little bit off of it so you don't see much of it. But it seems like there's a little bit too much of it, and so I'm making it more like maybe it is a curtain. And there you go. So see how you can just change things around and you work it. And I mean, people think that watercolors are not fixable and you can't do things with them after they're... No, you can. You just have to know how dry it is and know how much pigment and water you're going to put down. And so there we have the background a little bit darker now and punches out at the bottle. Also doesn't give me all that texture that I had in there from the stencil. And then down here is just basically a pattern tablecloth, and that's all good, right? All right, so that's about stencils. If you have any questions, and also you can just put them into the description and ask away down there. And if there's a thing you want to hear again that I didn't answer, please ask the questions, and I will try to answer them as best I can. And so this is, again, stencils on watercolor. And again, this works also for ink acrylic. You can do your acrylics this way too. And with the ink acrylics though, it's not so much wiping out, because once it's dry, it's pretty much there, the stencil. So then you're going to be doing a lot of airbrushing with your stencils. All right, and actually I wanted to also mention that you can probably use masking fluid in here too, and use masking fluid and blow masking fluid into your stencil, and then that would be masked away. And then put your layer over it, and then take the masking fluid off. That's another way. I haven't tried that yet, but I just thought about that today, about using a masking fluid, putting it into your airbrush, spraying your stencil, because you can make your own stencils too. There's machines that I think a lot of artists actually do use some of the stencils to work their watercolors. So anything you can do to make your watercolors look better, more power to you, boy. And so have fun with stencils, and I will see you on Tuesdays in my newsletter, and on Thursday nights I do paint-alongs on 6:30 Central Standard Time, and that's every Thursday. And go to my website to find out what we're painting that Thursday, or get my newsletter, sign up for my newsletter on my website at BeckerArt.net, and you can get that newsletter coming to you in your mailbox every Tuesday morning. And it shows you what we're doing for that week. And then this will be in there, actually. This video will be in my newsletter. And so have fun with it. All right, guys? And so until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.